Hi everyone, I'm Felix. Today I'm going to present our paper, Gamma, Automating the Hardware Mapping of DNN Model on Accelerator via Genetic Algorithm. There are a lot of successful DNN applications like object detection, image segmentation to playing games. And to accelerate those applications, there are a lot of special DNN accelerators are designed. They are featuring high parallelism via dotted PE and data communication via network on chip, and maximizing the data reuse by different mapping strategy. An architecture of DNN accelerator composed of two things: its hardware resources and mapping strategy. Hardware resources includes like PE, buffer, NUC bandwidth, and mapping strategy includes like TPU style, NVIDIA style, Iris style mapping. And then you will have your latency, energy, power area of the accelerator. Here's our outline. We will go to our motivation first, and then go to our problem formulation and talk about our method, and then go through the evaluation part. The architecture of DNN accelerator includes two things: hardware resources and mapping strategy. Hardware resources includes PE, NUC bandwidth, global buffer here, and local buffer inside each PE. And mapping strategy includes first compute order. Take convolution 2D for example. It means that how we order the for loop of the convolution 2D computation. And tile strategy or tile sizes. It means that we can use some smaller tile size to decompose the for loop. Like here we use a smaller tile size for Y. And the number of parallelism. Like here we want to parallelize across Y, so we will have one level of parallelism. And we can also have two level of parallelism, like parallelize across X and Y. And we can also change different parallelism dimension, like from X to K, Y to C. So you are now parallelizing across KC dimension, and it's like NVIDIA-like mapping. So why mapping matters? Here you are looking at the latency, energy, and area performance of different accelerator architecture, and they are under the same hardware resource constraint, just change their mapping strategy. And you can see that their minimum and maximum performance is very different. So just by varying the mapping, you could have 4 orders of magnitude difference under the same hardware resources. So now comes to our problem formulation. Our problem is, given a platform or accelerator infrastructure, we want to find the optimal mapping strategy. It means that our hardware resources constrained, like the number of PE, the global buffer, local buffer we have. And this is the constraint that we use in our experiment. And we want to tune each knob of the mapping aspect. And actually, the mapping space is large. Now let's look at a simple example of the second layer of VGG16. It will have 10 to the 12 different combinations. And let's say you can test one data point in 1 second. You will need 30,000 years to do it. So what is our challenge? The first challenge is the immense search space. So one level parallelism, we have 10 to the 12 different combinations. And the second challenge is the scaling up of the search space. It is come from the number of parallelism, because we also want to support like 2-level parallelism and 3-level parallelism. So the hyperparameter, like number of parallelism, actually makes the search space grow exponentially. And we need to search for all of them. But how do we know where to start and what is the resource portion we want to put in each search space? So we need an algorithm that can optimize through the scaling up of the search space automatically. Now comes to our method. Our work is called Gamma. It's a genetic algorithm-based optimization. So first of all, now let's look at how a general GA works first. GA will be composed of 2 parts, evolution and evaluation. At the start, we will do an initialization. You will initialize a population. A population is made of a lot of individuals. For each individual, you have a genome and gene. And gene is an encoded value, and a genome is a series of encoded values that represent an individual. After initialization, you will put your population into the evolution block. First, crossover. In crossover, you will swap the gene of some of the individual to generate the next generation. And then you will go to the mutation block. In mutation, you will select some of the gene and mutate their value. And sometimes you just don't change their value. After the mutation, you will go to the evaluation part to evaluate their fitness. Fitness is how good each individual is. So you will get their fitness value. And then you will select some good performing one as the parent of next generation. And then you will use crossover and mutation to generate next generation. and then also select the good performing one, and so on. Process stop when algorithm converge. Now let's look at gamma. Gamma is based on GA, and in the evaluation part, we add 3 additional genetic operators, which is reorder, growing, and aging, and we will talk about them in the later slides. And in the evaluation part, because we care about the hardware performance, so here our fitness will be some target objective like latency or energy. To get those numbers, we need a hardware code model. So here we embed an open source hardware code model called Maestro. And now let's look at the input of gamma. We will have DNN model, objective like latency or energy, and platform resources like number of PE, global buffer, and local buffer, and mapping constraint. And then we'll output a mapping strategy. Now let's look at our genetic encoding. As we say, an individual is made of genome and gene, and we want to use this genome to express the full aspect of the mapping space. So this is a one-level parallelism, and we call it L1 mapper. So we cover number of parallelism here. And we encode the compute order at the first row, so we cover compute order. And then we encode the tile size at the second row, so we cover the tile sizes. And we encode the parallelism dimension at the first gene, so we also cover the parallelism dimension. So now we have the full mapping. Similarly, we can also have a two-level mapper. For here, we have L2 and L1 mapper. So in the L2 mapper, it maps across K dimension. In L1 mapper, it maps across C dimension. And here are some constraints. For the lower mapper, like L1 mapper, the tile size, like 7 here, and the parallelism size, like 5 here, need to be smaller than the corresponding size on the upper mapper. Here's a simple example. As we know, a video like is a two-level parallelism, and it parallels across KC dimension, and here is how we express it. Now let's look at our genetic operator. First is crossover. You have dad and mom, and you want to randomly select some of the gene and swap their value. Then you will generate son and daughter. And then comes to mutation. In mutation, you will randomly select some of the tile size or parallelism dimension and mutate their value. And in reorder, we'll randomly select some of the gene pair and swap their order. So it's kind of the mutation of the compute order. And then now let's look at growing. Growing, you can grow from one level parallelism to two level parallelism. And its hardware implementation is like this. And then you can also grow from 2-level to 3-level parallelism. And also the hardware implementation is like this. And similarly, you can also do aging. So for aging, you can age from 3-level parallelism to 2-level, and from 2 to 1-level parallelism. Here is our summary. To do the design space exploration in the mapping space, actually there are many methods. You can use reinforcement learning or use some optimization method like particle swarm optimization or differential evolution or evolution strategy and so on. In those algorithms, if you define their search space well, you can cover tailoring strategy, compute order, and parallelism dimension. But the problem with those algorithms is that they need to have a fixed design space first. So actually, like the variable number of parallelism cannot be supported. And in Gamma, we can support all 4 aspects of them. So here we have a code model called Maestro. Maestro is the open source hardware performance code model for spatial accelerator. So the input will be DNN model, hardware configuration, and mapping strategy. And output will be latency, energy, power, and area, and so on. And we have a decoder module, which decodes the gene into the Maestro's input format. And then we have a finish function. The finish function will extract the objective we are interested of, like latency or energy. And we will use negative objective as our finish value for maximizing the finish. And we also check the constraint, like the global buffer, local buffer. So if the constraint is violated, we'll give large penalty, and here we give negative infinite value. So our finish function will summarize like this. And then comes to our evaluation. We compare with 2 kinds of algorithm. First is some common data flow like NVIDIA, like Shidina, like and Iris, like. And then we compare with some optimization method like genetic algorithm, particle swarm optimization, and so on. And then we compare under 5 different models. And we will target 2 different kind of objective like latency or energy, and 3 different constraints like number of PE, the global buffer size, local buffer size. And we give all the optimization method the same number of sampling budget is 10K data point. And we experiment under 3 different scenarios. First is fixed 2D array. Second is that your 2D array can be flexible. The third is that we make the 2D array available to be scaled out. So Respectively, there are 2-level parison, 1 to 2-level parison, and 2 to 3-level parison. Here you are looking at the result under ResNet 18. So for each column, it's the performance of different layers. So here are 20 different layers, so it's 20 different tasks. And the square here is how gamma perform. And it's worth noted, under these 20 different tasks, there are some of the algorithms that cannot find any solution for some of the tasks at all. So here's the number of times they cannot find solution. And we can see that gamma can always find valid solution. So gamma can consistently find valid solution across different scenarios because of its high sampling efficiency. For sampling efficiency, we define it as like this: the performance improvement over the number of sampling budget. So for our case, sampling budget will be 10K. And second is, gamma can find solution with 2 orders of magnitude better performance. After looking at the layer-wise performance comparison, now let's look at the end-to-end performance comparison. Here you are looking at the end-to-end performance of 4 different models, and we compare with some common data flow. Fixed mapping cannot have good end-to-end performance because one mapping cannot be as efficient across all the layers. And gamma can actually customize the mapping of each layer automatically so that it has better end-to-end performance. Now let's take a deeper look at our solution. So here you are looking at some found solution for the VGG16. First of all, gamma actually find customized mapping for each layer. Second, the found parison dimensions are consistent with the heuristic. Like for the early layer, we have some large activation dimension, so we actually want to pairize across the activation dimension. And for the late layer, we usually have larger channel size dimension, so we want to pairize across the channel size like K and C here. And moreover, we can actually see that gamma found some special tile size and interesting computer that normally it's hard to come up with human power. Here's our conclusion. The mapping of a DNN on an accelerator determines overall runtime and energy efficiency. But the search space of the mapping strategy is immense. An efficient search method is much needed. And also, the search space of mapping strategy is scaling up with the number of parison. Many of the shelf optimizer requires a rigid search space. A flexible search method that can optimize elastic number of parison is needed. At this end, we propose gamma. We create a comprehensive map space which enables algorithms to target a wider variety of fixed and flexible, single and multi-accelerator systems. We introduce new genetic operator which enable a domain-specific flexible search space, unlike most of the shelf optimization algorithms. Gamma is a black box optimizer for a hardware mapping problem, which saves manual tuning effort for ML practitioner who is exploring the hardware mapping search space. Thank you, and the code is available online.